Hi, this is Tom, Junkie XL. Welcome back to Studio Time with Junkie XL. And in this tutorial, I'd like to talk about the Doof Warrior. And in case you don't know what the Doof Warrior is, it's the guitar player that is strapped to the front of a truck in the Mad Max Fury Road movie. And he's almost like the cavalier of the army, where they used in the past. They used trumpets and horns or maybe a snare drum to get the army going and excited. George came up to have a guy in a red suit with a really scary face to do this. So I want to talk you through what I did for this guy because he's very important for the movie. And before we get to the guitar playing and some of the riffs that I came up with for this thing, I'd like to show you a little around what equipment I used for this and why I got to this sound. So I wanted a sound that was really beefy and really full and had a tendency of aggression. And I also did a lot of processing on top of the guitars, but I'll talk about that later. So I initially, because it's all taking place at the desert, and immediately I started thinking about stoner rock. I started thinking about bands like Cubase and Audioslave and Queens of the Stone Age, how they have these really big riffs, and I thought that would be great for this movie. So one of the amps, which is my favorite, which is the orange, it's also the national color of the Netherlands, where I'm from. So hey, guess what? A perfect match. The orange amp is really good to get that amazing sound. And this is the Thunderverb 200 head with the cabinet. And it has two channels. It has an A and a B channel. And the B channel primarily is I use it more for cleaner sounds, and it has a gain and it has a volume, and then it has a very interesting EQ button. That's only one EQ button, and it determines the shape between how much low frequencies are in there, how many mid frequencies are in there, and treble frequencies. It's a very, very interesting concept. But for this purpose, I use the other channel, the A channel, which has your gain right here, and then reverb. We're not using reverb on this one, and the volume, and then we have treble, mid frequencies, and bass frequencies. And the bass frequencies are all the way up. There's a little bit of mid, and the treble is like all the way out almost. And that way I get a really solid sound. And what I'm not going to do today, but what I actually did when I recorded the guitars for Fury Road, is I had the amp so incredibly loud that the microphones that we see here in front of the speakers, they were distorting too. The sound pressure coming off the speaker was so intense that the microphones started distorting too, which gives us a really interesting quality, because this Doof guy is on a truck and we see so many speakers behind him, and I can just imagine that all these speakers are too loud, so the speakers start distorting. The two pedals that I used for this guitar primarily is the full-tone full drive, which is a really, really nice pedal. It gives all these different distortion tones that is really, really nice. And the one that I used also a lot is this one, which is the Fat Boost. And the Fat Boost just makes the output level way hotter than a guitar normally would be. There's a drive parameter, treble and bass and volume. And so for the riffs that I'm going to be playing now, I'm going to use just this pedal. Now let's go to the guitars. I used two guitars on this movie. One is a 74 SG, which is this one over here. It's a beautiful guitar, and it has a really solid tone, and obviously there's a reason why this guitar is so loved in rock bands, because it has a great sustain, it has a great attack, and it's an amazing guitar. At this point, I'm going to play on a Les Paul, also Gibson, and this guitar has it's a new guitar. It's not a vintage guitar. I think it was made 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and it's really nice to play and really, really solid, and it has a great tone, like we will hear in a second. So what I did for most of the riffs is I tuned it to a drop-down C. So if I turn it on very quietly, so I can still talk a little bit, we have the C, we have the G, we have another C, G, B, E. So it's a, if I play it open, it's a C major 7. Trust me, there's no C major 7 chord in this score. So without any distortion and any weird things, this it sounds like this. Not very special. So what I'd like to do is play a couple of riffs in a row, and then I'll tell you what we use these riffs for. And I'm going to turn up the volume now. It's going to get really loud in here, so my mic here is going to get muted. I'm going to hold it there for a second, and let me talk a little bit about this. I'm not a star guitar player. I play really rough, and I just love the loose quality of it. Well, it's actually great that I love that style of playing because I couldn't do anything else. So this is my thing, and this is what I like to do. And luckily, we have Pro Tools and we have Cubase, so I can cut the best takes together until it gets something really solid. Now, the riffs that I just played are not featured in the movie when you actually see the Doof Warrior. Throughout the film, when we stick with Max and Furiosa in the truck, these guys are approaching from miles away. So we use these guitar riffs with the taiko drummers that sit on the back of the truck. And we filtered them down and we reverberated them, and we did some really creative mixing techniques when we were mixing the film to give the audience the sense that these guys are still about to catch up. You know, we still hear them like the thundering in the background. So there's a really particular scene. It's called Water, when Max for the first time meets Furiosa and the girls, and we see that they're fighting and they're looking. He's looking for water, something to drink, and he wants to steal the truck. And then we see in the background, we see that little bit of chrome that shines up in the sun, and that's the war party approaching. And the guitar player is in there playing those riffs to hype up the army, so to speak. So we used all these type of riffs to filter down and reverb to make sure that we understand this thing is coming. And it was very effective. And sometimes you don't even hear music or something, but you just feel like it's a rumbling sound that gets closer and gets closer. Now let's go to the first time we see this guy, and when his riff gets introduced. I'll just play the riff, and then we'll talk a little bit after that. Okay, so that's the main riff. Now that main riff comes back a couple of times in the film. The first time when we see it. Now when you see the movie, it doesn't sound like this. It sounds way more over the top and way more crazy, and that's because I doubled that riff not only 4 to 8 times. So every speaker in the theater has a unique guitar playing. What you will be hearing right now when you watch this tutorial is just one guitar playing. When you hear it in a theater, you hear at least 16. So that one goes to the left speaker, one goes to the center speaker, one goes to the right, then a couple of takes for the surrounds, left and right. And if you're lucky to see it in Atmos, or you're seeing it in 7.1 or 11.1, there are even more speakers where different takes of that guitar comes out. And that's the reason why the guitar sounds so incredibly massive in the theater. And not as massive at this point when it's just me on my own. Another thing that I did a lot of processing on individual guitars to make it more sound like it's coming from a horn. Because if you see the truck, you see all these horns and all these speakers. So you don't really see a Marshall rig there, or a Mesa Boogie, or a Great Orange amp. You see all these little speakers that it comes from. So I also had to make the guitar very gnarly and aggressive. And that I did with unique plugins. I didn't do that with the amp and pedals. So I did all that in Cubase. Let's now move forward to another section in the movie where every time when the war party comes to a halt or it's slowing down, I'm using this muted technique to play the notes. So while it's still quiet, I'm just going to play. That's pretty much what it is. But there's a technique of hitting it really hard, but letting your hand on the bridge, and it starts really growling, and it doesn't become just a staccato note anymore. It becomes this. It sounds like an engine that won't start up. Let me play that for you. So that thing is pretty important too. And like I said, I record hundreds of them, and I pick the 10 that I like. And that's my welcoming world of Cubase. And I'm sure there are thousands and thousands of guitar players out there that can do that all in one take, and it sounds fantastic. I can't, and that's why I have Cubase and Pro Tools to help me out with that. So the other thing that happens later is the fight with Max and the Doof Warrior on the guitar, and I have some riffs that are similar to that, but I did it all on one string, and then I would go up and slide a lot to get that feeling like it's he's fighting, and then I did a lot of overdubs where I would play with a lot of distortion, but I would play a chord like when he gets hit or something like that, but a lot of distortion, so to anticipate, that he's fighting. I can't emphasize enough that what you're hearing in a theater is not just one guitar; it's a lot of layers on top of each other to make the guy even crazier, even more nutty, and even more out of control. and let me just play, you know, a few of those fight riffs. So that was one. And I did a lot with these harmonics. Now, again, when you have one guitar playing this, it's one thing, but if you have two, it starts to get really special, and that's why, you know, a lot of these great metal bands that I've worked with in the early 90s, like Fear Factory and Machine Head and Soulfly, they have that great sound because two guitar players playing that same thing with the overnotes, and they're way better guitar players than I would ever be. And now, if you do this 8 times or 16 times in a theater, not for a CD production, but in a theater, you can really spread it around you and just make it really, really aggressive and really in your face. And we had a really lot of fun playing, you know, with all those speaker bits and pieces. And then basically, at the very end of the movie, when everything comes to an end and the guitar player dies and the guitar comes front to the camera and then it gets pulled back into the truck, that's where the Valhalla theme plays, and that's where I recorded a 4-voice melody that almost sounds Brian May Queen almost. It's a little tongue-in-cheek, but it really fitted with the quality of the movie. This tutorial would be too short to really show all the ins and outs of the guitar. There will be another tutorial at some point where I go into the mixing of guitars in Cubase, and then we talk more about plugins, and we talk more about how I created the sounds and routed it through the whole theater. I just want to give you like the bare basics of the 2 Gibson guitars I used, the full tone effects, the orange amp, and what we did with the miking, and how many times we recorded it, and how bad of a guitar player I am, and thanks to Cubase, everything got saved. So thanks for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you soon. Thanks, bye.